That Was Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Define Mind and Body Wellness, my wellness center here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, where we specialize in holistic services to help shortcut the process so that you can see results fast, but learn to do it in a habitual way. So many of the topics we talk about are part of the program that our clients receive, except they get much more in-depth detail. Also, my workbook of the 10-week program to lose and never look back, which is only available to our patients at Define. If you are interested in holistic body fat spot reduction, or our pod to increase your metabolism, or our cold plunge, or our sauna, which is the best sauna in the world, and that I promise you, I know that sounds biased, but you'll see for yourself. Please go to definewellnesscenter.com. You will be prompted to put your information in and make sure to mention podcast when you do, as you will be eligible for a bigger discount on our introductory services because you are a listener. Appreciate you. Have a great day and enjoy today's podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the That Was Yesterday podcast. I am your host, Joe Carabase, and I am also a certified hypnotist. And on today's episode, I wanted to share a pre-talk. So this is something that all incoming hypnosis patients will listen to ahead of their hypnosis session. Or if you're thinking about hypnosis, it's really good for you to hear this and have this process before you ever get hypnotized. Which, by the way, if you get hypnotized anywhere else, make sure that there is some form of pre-talk because it's really important. You'll never get the benefit from hypnosis if you go in there with fear or concern that are not addressed, or if you're there unwillingly. So oftentimes spouses, parents, whoever will set up somebody to do hypnosis. That's not a good idea, because if the individual who is going to get hypnotized does not want to get hypnotized, or if they have fear around getting hypnotized, it's not going to work. And so what is hypnosis? Well, hypnosis essentially is the bypassing the critical factor of the conscious mind so that we can work directly with the subconscious mind to heal whatever micro or macro internal traumas that are leading to an unwanted behavior pattern. Now, the unwanted behavior pattern could be something external, could be something that you're doing out in the world, like overeating, avoiding certain behaviors like driving on the highway, holding on to bowels. There's a number of things, and I'll get into a lot of the common areas that I treat later on. But any sort of external pattern outside of yourself, that's something that I could address, but it could also address internal patterns that are not serving you. So internal patterns could be how you think about yourself, how you think about the world, how you think about your ability to do something or not to do something, your internal self-talk. These are all patterns, inside or out. And regardless if it's inside or out, there is an underlying root cause for them. And the issue we live in today's world is that there's an over-prescription and over-reliance, which is not on the consumer's fault, by the way. It's a bigger issue at play, a culture issue at play. But there's an over-reliance on SSRIs and also on just disempowering people. In other words, like, well, this is how you are. You're an anxious person. Really? You might have a higher level of anxiety, but that doesn't mean that you're just an anxious person. Like, you didn't come out of the womb with anxiety. Now, your parents could tell a story saying you were always this way, but that's their story coming from their own internal stuff, right? We all have stuff. And I'm sure your parents had good intentions. Most of them do. Maybe some of them don't. Doesn't matter. It matters. But at the end of the day, wherever you are right now is a byproduct of so many factors, and certainly parental and spouse, siblings, and environment with growing up has sort of evolve you down a path. But that doesn't mean that it's just how you are. And that's really, really important to know. So any behavior can be changed. Any behavior can be changed. And I'll talk about how that can happen through hypnosis. Whatever the micro or macro internal trauma is that is going on inside is unresolved, that is going to continue to produce the behavior that you want to stop, that you want to avoid until it is addressed. Now, why hypnosis is such an effective mode of resolving those internal traumas is because you're taking your conscious mind out of it. And oftentimes in therapy, even like, so talk therapy, again, something that it can be a good mode, but what can also happen in talk therapy for a lot of people is whether the person seeking therapy knows it or not, they can manipulate the therapist. They can tell the therapist what they want to hear, or just talk to the therapist about what they want to talk about, but really avoid what needs to be talked about. And so that's the conscious mind sort of doing its trick. It's self-sabotage will seep out and prevent you from addressing the root cause oftentimes. Now, that's not always the case. Again, talk therapy can be extremely effective. And by the way, so can SSRIs. And I don't think there's anything wrong with SSRIs. My problem with SSRIs is that oftentimes they're prescribed and it's just like, all right, see you later. Let us know when you need more. Versus it being a tool, a bridge to get you from where you are to the next place. So like with my hypnosis, for instance, my goal is not to have you as a hypnosis client indefinitely. That means I'm not doing a very good job or you're not willingly participating, but that's something we would have to work out because that's not the point of. The point is to change behavior once and for all, right? And so there are a lot of tools in the world, but I feel like holistic methods of really changing the way we think and how we think about ourselves and how we perceive the world tend to be the best option because long term it's going to serve you the best. Because I don't care where you're at and what you're going through, you have so much more potential and so much more inside you that you're likely not able to recognize. Sometimes we prevent ourselves from recognizing that. And again, culture can sort of disempower us by saying, hey, you need this or you are this. And again, those things are just not true. So stage hypnotism, again, is a real form of hypnotism, but it's not something that you really have to have a fear about because you are in complete control when you are in a hypnosis session. And so if there's anything you don't want to do, you will not do it. Anything you don't want to say, you will not say it. The idea in Hollywood of like hypnotizing somebody with some sort of like, whatever the mechanism is, dangling in front of their face and getting the person to do something crazy, like that's Hollywood, right? That's just not real life. Really, when you come in for hypnosis, you're going to get to a very relaxed spot so that, again, your conscious mind is not overly thinking. With that, hypnosis can be great for a lot of different issues and struggles that people are having. Some of the more common ones I work with are anxiety, bowel movements, sleep, smoking, or limitations placed on you by someone else or yourself. This is another thing that can happen. Someone got told something by someone who they looked up to, or maybe they were in an insecure spot at the time, and that sort of took on a life of its own and became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But again, that can be changed. Weight loss is a really important way for hypnosis, but it's not simply like, hey, you will lose weight. Like, yeah, okay, maybe that could work in a way, but you got to really get to the root of why it is that you are holding on to the weight, why you gain weight in the first place, and that happens through the hypnosis process. Cravings, another big one I handle. Cravings isn't just a matter of like, oh, comfort eating as if like I have no discipline or I just stress eat because that's what I do. There's underlying reasons for that. It's not just about cravings of something sugary or salty or anything else. There's something deeper inside going on there. Once you solve that, we can replace that habit with something else. So how you get hypnotized, when you first come in, we're going to do basically like another version of a pre-talk where we're going to go over an intake form to find out more about what it is you're looking for, what exact benefits you are looking for, what behaviors you are looking to stop, but also to go over your fears, right? It's very important. If you are going into hypnosis fearful, it will not work. And if you're going into hypnosis thinking it will not work, guess what? It will not work. And I can tell you, I have zero interest in trying to hypnotize someone who doesn't think they can be hypnotized. Like, I'm not out here to prove that I can hypnotize you. I simply don't care if that's how you're coming into it, because that's just a waste of time. Anything you go into thinking it will not work, it will not work. So for hypnosis to work, you have to make sure, like we said, your fears about it are taken care of, are resolved. You feel more comfortable. But beyond that, you have to go into it with an open mind that it could work for you, that it will work for you if you're open to it. And it will work if you are open to it. Super and super important to understand that. So when you come in for that first time, we're having that conversation, kind of going over all that stuff. From there, there's going to be relaxing binaural beats to help the brain wave sort of settle down and to help you focus. And then I'll take you through an induction to get you into a hypnotic trance. And the trance is going to get you to a really relaxed space where oftentimes you'll find that your motor skills will not, like, you're not going to be actively like moving around and doing various types of movement during hypnosis. Like, you're going to be very relaxed. So your motor, you're going to be almost like a lot of people will describe it as they're floating, right? They're just floating through space and time. They're in sort of like a different dimension. A lot of people, I know this sounds crazy, but this is what we hear from a lot of people after their sessions. And basically through that induction, the idea of the induction is to get you into a state of hypnosis, to trance. And so within that, what we're working on is changing the way you're talking about and thinking about the issue that you have. So that is the hypnotist, it's myself or whoever you might be working with potentially. I don't know how a lot of people go about their hypnosis. I can only speak from my own experience, but taking you through sort of a process to address your individual issues in regards to what it is you came here for. Then from there, in my hypnosis, it involves talking. I will ask you questions. And because your conscious mind is relaxed, we get truth. And to change anything, you need truth. And so your subconscious will guide you and will sort of take over. And so we're talking to parts of you who are struggling with this issue, who perhaps in the regular world, day to day, or even in a therapist's office or wherever else, these parts are sort of hidden or pushed down. Perhaps that you're not aware of them, or perhaps there are parts that you are aware of that you consciously try to avoid. But again, with your conscious mind being completely rest, your subconscious will be more open to allow these parts of you to speak, to come out and to say what the issue is and why you're staying with the issue. Because this is what the crazy part is when I do a lot of subconscious and shadow work with people. I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it with myself for years as well. What's really interesting is that there's, I oftentimes use the beach ball example of that, like at all times, if you're dealing with an internal negative pattern, we are consciously or subconsciously pushing it down. We're requiring a lot of energy to keep it down, to not address it. And it's just like if you had a beach ball and you're pressing it down underwater, you would have to exert a lot of force to keep it underwater, but it's not possible to keep exerting that force forever. At some point, it's going to pop back up. And so hypnosis in a way is a release of that extra energy you're using, again, consciously or subconsciously, to push down whatever these issues are. And so to solve these issues, we need to understand these issues. And what's interesting is that so oftentimes the person, and I'll take a person, say, who has weight issues, who, especially if they struggle with weight their entire life, oftentimes this person, as much as they consciously say they want to lose weight, there's a part of them that is holding on to being overweight because there is a fear of not being overweight. What does that look like? That can truly be a death of an identity for a part of you. Just imagine there's a part of you who all she's ever known is being overweight. That is her identity. That's actually safe. It's actually comfortable. Now we know physically it's not healthy and not ideal to be overweight, but internally, that is what is known and that is what's safe, is what's secure. And so self-sabotage will sort of act out and manifest in ways to keep you overweight because there's a fear of what's on the other side. So we have to understand that fear. We have to make the parts of you feel comfortable with what the potential change is, which is why it's not just me telling you what you need to do. It's me guiding you to help your subconscious come up with the right approach, right? I'm guiding you in that way, in a very particular way, because if you're not able to sort of have that realization from the subconscious, it's not going to be something you're going to be able to sustain long term. And so it's really, really important. And again, this is why you have to be open to hypnosis in the first place, because to really create change, you have to be fully on board and fully ready for it. So oftentimes a big sort of hurdle early on is just getting you comfortable with the fact of, like, the change is going to happen and it's okay. So why are you holding on to the change? Where did it come from? What other parts are involved? And what would it look like without that, right, in your life? And again, this can all happen at an accelerated rate when you're in trance, because the conscious mind does not get in the way as it normally does in so much of our life. So it can get deep. It oftentimes does get deep, and this is something that's going to turn a lot of people away. But what I would encourage you to think about it is almost like the proverbial monster in the closet. Like if you ever been in, maybe you've seen on TV or you have kids and they, a situation where the kid ran into the parent room and they're like, there's a monster in my closet, and they're scared. It's the middle of the night. It's dark. So the parent goes into the room. Now for the kid, in their head, there's a monster in the closet. And that's frightening, right? The parent knows there's not a monster in the closet, but they'll go open the closet door, turn the lights on, and you see it's just a shirt hanging, a toy, whatever it is. There's nothing actually there that's threatening. And that's the amazing thing about this internal work, is that it feels a lot heavier and a lot worse than it actually is. And if we can just turn the light on, you'll see that, well, there's actually nothing to be scared of. It's really the idea of what's there is what's scary. Another example for you to think about is imagine two scenarios. One scenario, you're walking down a dark street, there is no lights. I don't care who you are, there's no lights. You're gonna be a little scared, right? Now, let's imagine all of a sudden the lights came on and you're walking down that same street. In which case do you think you would be more comfortable? With the lights on, right? Well, how do we turn the lights on? Well, through getting you to a very relaxed place so we can find out what's going on. What is the perceptions? What is the experiences? What are the traumas that are there? Shine light on it so it comes to the surface. If you don't bring it to the surface, it's going to continue to spew out and manifest in ways that are not productive for your life. And so it's really important to address whatever internal issues are that you have. And to my experience as a coach for almost 20 years, I have found no better way, no faster way to change someone's mindset than to take them through a hypnotic process and make them a part of it, because you are a part of it. But again, it's going to get deep, all right? It's going to get deep, and that's the only way. And it's not just deep during the actual session. We are unlocking, and a lot of times, emotions and thoughts and experiences that have been bottled up for your entire life. Now, if this sounds scary and nerve-wracking to you, that's okay. Like, that's to be expected, right? But again, you have to realize if you just keep it down there, it's not going to do you any good. Another example I like to use with people is imagine you had a really bad cut on your leg and you're like, I am not going to the hospital. I hate hospitals. I don't have good insurance. I'm going to have to wait there. It smells, blah, 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 blah. So you don't go. And that cut gets worse and worse and worse. Then it gets infected. Then all of a sudden that infection, because you're still not taking care of the issue, travels and gets bigger and deeper. And before long, the cut you had on your leg that could have been resolved with some stitches, some antibiotics, is now a wound that is infected, that has taken over your entire leg, and now you got to get it amputated. Now, that's an extreme example, perhaps, but that is what happens with unresolved internal issues. You may not have to get an amputation. I'm not suggesting that, but what I am suggesting is that it will spread and it will become a bigger issue the longer you wait to take care of it. So don't be afraid when we talk about going deep. It's actually a very good thing. And again, in a hypnosis environment, it's very relaxing, it's very safe, it's anonymous. Nothing that happens within that room will ever leave that room. You don't have to worry about that. Oftentimes people ask like, well, what will I feel like during? During, you're going to feel really relaxed. You'll find throughout various points of time, like as I take people through certain inductions, your eyelids will shut. You're not going to be able to open your eyelids, just showing you that you're in a trance. Little things like that. You'll find like oftentimes if I lift an arm during hypnosis, it's just going to plop down like a wet dishcloth, right? It's just your physical sort of like energy is like completely relaxed even. So it's just a sign that your body, your nervous system is really able to be conditioned. And after such, a lot of people will experience like tingling and a release. And it's a release because you're releasing a lot of tension that was otherwise clogging you up and holding you up. And so one other thing that I often get asked about that I think is important to bring up is like, well, how many sessions will I need? Well, with hypnosis, you generally need about 3 hypnosis sessions to address any one issue. Now, I've had people who have had, so like you go into hypnosis with like a really great awareness of what your issue is and you're really ready. Well, that can oftentimes be resolved in one hypnosis session. Generally, it takes about 3 per issue. Now, if there is something bigger going on, if you have a lot of sort of webs, right? Like things are connected and interconnected. Like for instance, oftentimes you'll see weight as an issue. You'll see that along with cravings as an issue, with fear and anxiety or some combination of those, they sort of all go together. And in that way, we would always want to address the anxiety first, because anxiety is like the umbrella of which everything else will fall off after. So you have to take care of anxiety first. So that would be the first section. So sometimes at the very beginning, it's hard to know exactly how many sessions you might need, but I start with 3 sessions per individual issue. I will do one-off sessions as a way for people to experience it, maybe for people who are not exactly sure, but who are willing to test it out. What you should know, though, is that it will take longer than that to see long-term change. There's a really well-known, she retired now, but a really well-known hypnotist in this area. And so many people who I've worked with, whether when I had the gyms or even now, have had really good results from that hypnosis. But the problem I found with that, a lot of people, after years of success, a lot of times people will sort of find themselves back where they started. And the reason is because in my mind, to this point, in group hypnosis, it's very hard to create lasting change, because to create lasting change, you have to heal the micro and macro issues that are going down within. And I have not figured out how to do that in a group setting yet. Something I would love to be able to do eventually, but I find that in the one-on-one setting, we're able to do that quite well. So, hypnosis is something you got to be ready for. If you're not ready to change, like anything else, it's just not going to work. If you think it's not going to work, it won't work. If you have fear or anxiety about it, that's okay. It's normal to have that. It's something new. It's something different. But that's why I'm sharing this message, to give you some more insights, to give you an idea of what you could expect. Now, basically, we talked about how we get you into the pre-talk. When you come in for your first session, we go over everything on a deeper level of what you want, what your outcomes are, what more about your struggle. We get you into the induction to a really relaxed place, take you through the hypnotic process, then take you out of hypnosis. You'll wake up alert, empowered, but really relaxed. It's a really different type of feeling, people will say. And that feeling can kind of last. A lot of times people will report after their first hypnosis session, they find themselves a little bit more emotional that day, because they're all of a sudden the floodgates are open. And again, that's a good thing, right? Because otherwise all of that emotion that you felt would just have been pushed down. And that's where it manifests into negative behaviors. So that's not a bad thing. Welcome it, be open to it. Expressing emotion is a good thing, is a healthy thing. Numbing emotion, blocking emotion, whether consciously or subconsciously or through some sort of medicine or shot or drug, is not good. It's not going to help long term. It's just going to make the issue worse. It's just the proverbial Band-Aid, right? So a lot of people will experience insights that they did not know were there. And you'll start to notice more and more your behaviors change. In terms of frequency, I like to do the 3 hypnosis sessions, 1 a week for the first 3 weeks. And in between, I give you some homework. And so I record our sessions, give you the audio so you can listen to it. And then depending on the individual, what you got going on will depend on what the homework looks like. But again, the goal is for it to change. And I know this isn't what people like to hear, but for you to create lasting change, whether to the physical body or the internal fitness, it takes work. And hypnosis is going to shortcut the process faster than anything I've come up against so far in my life. Again, 20 years as a coach in a holistic way. There are no downsides. There's no negatives to hypnosis at all. It's just, again, you have to be open and willing for it. So that is what you can expect from hypnosis. And if it's something that you are ready for, we'd love for you to reach out to us. Go to definewellnesscenter.com. Thanks for tuning in to That Was Yesterday with me, Joe Carabase. And remember, every step forward is progress. We'll catch you next time. And in the meantime, if you found any value from this episode, please share with friends and go ahead and give us a 5-star review. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon.